Welcome to My on Mondays, an explorative approach to the possessive my through narratives, art, and sound. Each Monday brings a new creation and unique perspective. My on Mondays is brought to you by MING Studios, a contemporary art space and international artist residency program dedicated to the exhibition, experience, and exploration of arts and culture. Along with exhibiting artists from around the world, MING also serves the community by hosting innovative programs including performances, workshops, screenings, readings, artist talks, and other cultural activities. For more information, or if you'd like to participate in My on Mondays, you can visit our website at mingstudios.org. Hello and welcome to the 13th episode of My on Mondays. Today our featured guest is Teal Gardner, an interdisciplinary artist living and working in Boise, Idaho, where she has resided since 2016. Her piece, titled My Not Bog, explores the slippages among ecosystems, the human self, and the ruins produced by extraction. It features a sound experiment that replicates Alivn Lucier's 1969 I Am Sitting in a Room. Special thanks goes to Hartford University's Nomad MFA cohort CSIC for the company and collaboration in the artist's exploration of crystal peat. And a thank you to the professors Christy Gast and Camila Marambio for their project Ensayos, where you can learn so much more about peatlands.
I'm recording from Boise, Idaho, arcing my thoughts back through the dust and smoke of a burning western summer, and returning to June of this year when I was visiting Connecticut for an immersive residency with the University of Hartford's Nomad MFA program. For a class, Art and Ecology, my cohort and I, along with our professors Christy Gast and Camila Marambio, and bryologist Dr. Bernard Goffinet of the University of Connecticut, visited the Crystal Peat Conservation Area in Tolland. This visit introduced us to the dynamics of a peat bog ecosystem and called into question what kind of ecosystem we were actually standing on. We found ourselves looking around with some uncertainty as the professional bryologist, Dr. Goffinet, assured us that what we were looking at was in fact not a bog. A peat bog is a type of wetland ecosystem characterized by the presence of mosses, most usually sphagnum moss, which colonizes the wetland and changes the soil and water to prevent other species from surviving there. Peat bogs are present all over the world and store large amounts of carbon. Although they cover less than 3% of global land surfaces, estimates suggest that peatlands contain twice as much as the world's forests. On the wooded, verdant path that descended into the watery lowlands of the Crystal Peat Conservation Area, I was struck by the sound of the space. The large birches and heavy vegetation, the birds calling back and forth, the carpets of moss and pools of still water felt room-like to me. I had come there with the idea of recording the voice of the bog, to come to know crystal peat through recording its various sounds. I also wanted to use the opportunity of being at Crystal Peat to attempt a new version of Alivn Lucier's 1969 sound art piece, I Am Sitting in a Room. The piece features Lucier recording himself narrating a text and then playing the tape recording back into the room, re-recording it. The new recording is then played back and re-recorded, and this process is repeated. Since all rooms have characteristic resonance or formant frequencies, the effect is that certain frequencies are emphasized as they resonate in the room until eventually the words become unintelligible, replaced by the pure resonant harmonies and the tones of the room itself. I wanted to hear myself disappear into the bog. I rewrote Lucier's text and replaced the word room with bog and recorded myself reading it among the hummocks of sphagnum moss. After ranging around and being with the bog in our own various ways for several hours, the heavy rain clouds that had been collecting above since we'd arrived finally broke loose, and my classmates, professors, and I made a quick departure, some hunkering under blankets to protect us from the heavy rain. Driving back to Hartford, Connecticut, we entered and exited sheets of water as they poured from the sky. I'm in a bathroom on Jefferson Street in Boise, Idaho, about to play my bog recording into it through a speaker placed in the clawfoot bathtub. It is early September now, and the air outside the window is hazy with smoke blowing over from fires around the northwest. I'm on the second floor of the house and at eye level with the silver maple's tree canopy. I think about the maple branches covered along their lengths with pointed regular leaves and think they look similar to an individual piece of sphagnum moss. I'm placing myself in the headspace of a bog. I'm starting to see bog everywhere. My project to recreate Lucier's experiment using my bog recording requires me to find my closest bog. This bathroom, dedicated to the flow of water, will be my bog. To accurately reproduce Lucier's project, I would have had to do the process of recording and playing back that I'm currently performing in the bathroom in the bog itself. You can't see this, but each time I say the word bog in reference to Crystal Peat, I'm doing air quotes. This is because when we visited Crystal Peat, we found that it had been altered by the process of peat harvesting decades before. What we encountered there was a not bog, or a bog in transition, or what might be considered the ruin of a bog. This not bog inspired the recording that you will now hear, which is in a way another not bog. By not recording this piece at the original bog site, but instead recording it in a bathroom in Idaho, I'm replacing the resonant frequencies generated in the bog with sounds of ceramic, tile, wood, metal, and glass as they reflect and reverberate the sounds being played. Throughout this process, I've been hearing my voice, my bog voice, removed further and further under the frequencies of the room as they take over. This self-erasure is an annihilation and transformation. Hearing myself replaced, I feel connected to Crystal Peat, the ruin, the transformed. With reverence and sincere regard, I dedicate this recording experiment to Crystal Peat. I am sitting in a bog, different from the one you are in now. I am recording the sound of my bog voice, and I'm going to play it back into the bog until the resonant frequencies of the bog reinforce themselves so that any semblance of my speech, with perhaps the exception of rhythm, is destroyed. What you will hear then are the natural resonant frequencies of the bog articulated by speech. I regard this activity not so much as a demonstration of a physical fact, but more as a way to replace myself with the features of the bog. I am sitting in a bog, different from the one you are in now. I am recording the sound of my bog voice, and I'm going to play it back into the bog until the resonant frequencies of the bog reinforce themselves so that any semblance of my speech, with perhaps the exception of rhythm, is destroyed. What you will hear then are the natural resonant frequencies of the bog articulated by speech. I regard this activity not so much as a demonstration of a physical fact, but more as a way to replace myself with the features of the bog. I am sitting in a bog, different from the one you are in now. I am recording the sound of my bog voice, and I'm going to play it back into the bog until the resonant frequencies of the bog reinforce themselves so that any semblance of my speech, with perhaps the exception of rhythm, is destroyed. What you will hear then are the natural resonant frequencies of the bog articulated by speech. I regard this activity not so much as a demonstration of a physical fact, but more as a way to replace myself with the features of the bog. I am sitting in a bog, different from the one you are in now. I am recording the sound of my bog voice, and I'm going to play it back into the bog until the resonant frequencies of the bog reinforce themselves so that any semblance of my speech, with perhaps the exception of rhythm, is destroyed. What you will hear then are the natural resonant frequencies of the bog articulated by speech. I regard this activity not so much as a demonstration of a physical fact, but more as a way to replace myself with the features of the bog. I am sitting in a bog, different from the one you are in now. I am recording the sound of my bog voice, and I'm going to play it back into the bog until the resonant frequencies of the bog reinforce themselves so that any semblance of my speech, with perhaps the exception of rhythm, is destroyed. What you will hear then are the natural resonant frequencies of the bog articulated by crystal peat is an example of a peat bog ecosystem that has been damaged. These ecosystems exist throughout the world and are crucial for carbon sequestration. Worldwide, peat bogs are threatened by human development. The story of crystal peat's undoing is not uncommon, and the carbon locked within peat bogs, when freed, will continue to alter our Earth system's ability to regulate climate within thresholds that support life as we know it. I ask you to educate yourself and act in order to protect global peatlands. There are even some in Idaho. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. Please join us next week for work by songwriter and poet Jessie Blake Rundle.